A lot of speed and certainly a responsible centerman in Nash.
Yeah, absolutely. And there you see Nash right there, and it's actually, I think he deserves a lot of credit for how good a season Riley Nash had. I mean, a lot of casual fans will look at hockey and say goals and assists and stuff like that, and Riley had a little bit more offensive output this year than he did a year ago, but this is a guy who played pretty much with rookies from the entire season. I mean, there were times where he was out there with guys that he probably had never met before who just come up from Cleveland because of all the injuries, and you know, he pretty much played from day one. He had a rookie on his left and a rookie on his right, and he ended up, you know, being one of the top defensive forwards in the NHL. If you look at the numbers, you know, just with goals allowed per 60 minutes when he was on the ice, he was one of the top guys in the NHL. Expected goals, if you want to get into the advanced stats, he was one of the top defensive forwards in the NHL there as well. And so he deserves a lot of credit for what he brought to this team, playing with a lot of guys throughout the year who had not played a lot of hockey. And right now, if you see him out there, it's been with Eric Robinson and Emil Bemstrom the past couple of days, and you're right, that adds a lot of speed. You know, Robinson, and Bemmer both have that offensive ability as well. So, I mean, if you're talking about a fourth line, that line can score probably a little bit more than the average fourth line. You know, I really like the way Bemstrom was playing when the pause hit. He had started to score goals and looked more comfortable out there. You know, big Eric Robinson fan just with the speed that he brings and his physical ability. And you put Nash between them, yeah, that should be a really responsible fourth line that can probably have a little bit of upside as well. But, you know, I'm glad you brought up Nash because I think he deserves a little bit more credit probably than he got for the way that this team played this year.
Absolutely. I want to continue with that line, and specifically Robinson. He scored a goal in the last game that the Blue Jackets played. Hard to believe. Way back in Vancouver against the Canucks, and that was a big goal he scored. The Jackets came from behind to beat the Canucks in Vancouver. Excuse me. One thing that Robinson has, aside from the speed, is size, and they are projecting if his hands can ever catch up to those feet, the Blue Jackets have a dynamic left winger who can certainly put the puck in the net on a regular basis.
Absolutely, and we saw it at times this year. I think there was a great goal. I think he scored against Detroit, if I remember correctly, where Zach Werenski, it was late in the game, and they were kind of protecting the lead, and Werenski just rims it out of the zone. And Robinson chases it down, skates right by the defenseman, and then tucks it around. I think it was Jimmy Howard at that point, if I remember correctly. And it was like, you know, you're starting to see the situation where the hands are catching up to the feet a little bit with Robinson. The feet are elite. I mean, he's as fast as and as good a skater as probably anybody in the NHL at the winger spot. His speed is ridiculous. And yeah, it's just a matter of, you know, if he can, you know, figure out the you know, and he's young too. He's only played a fair number of NHL games. That if, you know, the experience catches up and the hands catch up, you know, he's got a great shot. We saw that, you know, against Nashville and against Vancouver this year with some big goals. You know, he's got the tools there. Is he ever going to be a 30-goal scorer? Probably not. But, you know, if the hands catch up to the feet a little bit, this could be a 15 to 20-goal guy that, you know, you're really excited to have around just because of all the things he can bring. And it starts with that speed. And Torts talks about it all the time. You know, he loves these guys that are fast. He loves the speed that Foudy might bring. He loves the speed Robinson has. You know, those guys were actually with Riley on Monday, and that could be the fastest fourth line in America, on the wings at least, those two guys, if they end up together. But, you know, speed is something you just can't teach, and Torts loves what those guys bring to the table when they have it.
Well, you just see Robinson there, and he was matched up on that far side in the white jersey was Texier, and boy, I'll tell you what, you talk about speed, he certainly provides that. He is healthy. I think that he has certainly some offensive upside for the team. And it was interesting even yesterday with Dubois leaving early, as we'd mentioned, and not taking part in the regular part of the Blue Jackets practice, why Texier on occasion took some line rushes at center ice. So he, I think, eventually might become a centerman, but certainly he'll provide some offense on that left wing. And as we mentioned, some of that speed we talked about.
Absolutely, and I think they feel pretty good about where they're at center right now with, you know, Dubois, Jenner, Wenberg, Nash. I think they feel pretty good there to where Tex doesn't have to play center at this point. I think you are right that down the road, you know, that's what they see him as, and probably sooner rather than later. But right now, if you can just put him on the wing where he's, you know, he's still young. He's only 20 years old, and you think about, you know, him coming in the postseason last year, and I think we almost probably think of him as being a little bit older than he is just because of the fact that he has come in and just kind of so seamlessly played for this team. But, you know, he's still 20 years old, still learning the game quite a bit. If you give him less responsibility at wing and just let his natural abilities take over, He was a guy that, I think he had 13 points in his last 9 games before he got hurt this year. Watching a lot of the replays on Fox Sports Ohio this year, watching your calls, something that I really was impressed with when they were showing those games in December before Tex got hurt. I think he was really playing a much better game and is really starting to assert himself as the player that they thought he was going to be. And he does a lot of little things well. And I'm really excited to see how it grows here, starting when they get back to action here in this restart.
Let's talk about an area that I believe the Blue Jackets have an edge over the Maple Leafs. I'm interested in your thoughts. Far side of the ice, standing alone, is Blue Jackets head coach John Tortorella. Torts has been through the wars. He's won a Stanley Cup as a coach. He had the team immaculately prepared for their 2 playoff series last year against Toronto and, of course, the Boston Bruins, and they certainly deserved a better fate against Boston. And I give him the edge over the rookie coach Keefe come next month and the start of these Stanley Cup playoffs. He's going to have this team prepared. He'll have them in the right frame of mind. And as I said earlier, I think the Jackets can make some noise here in these Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing it's funny that we were just talking about the speed of the guys. As we're watching kind of the monitors here, we just saw Liam Foudy getting these one-on-one drills. Liam Foudy getting body position and getting to the net. Eric Robinson jetting by guys. It kind of, you can kind of see it as we're talking here about what we're talking about with the speed that some of these guys have. Now we kind of see Cam trying to cut his way in on Nick. Good defense there from the captain. But yeah, as we focus back on Torts, absolutely. This is a guy that's won a Stanley Cup. His really, coached so many playoff series in his career, and not just NHL career, but even throughout his professional coaching career, which is more than just the NHL. Nothing against Keefe, who's going to be coaching Toronto, who has got some experience as well, but it's not at the NHL level. You look at what Torts has done and just his ability to kind of, in a playoff series, get the temperature of a team and keep it on that even keel and keep it building. That's something, obviously won a Stanley Cup with Tampa doing that, had some success with the Rangers doing that. The success the Blue Jackets had last year in the playoffs, a lot of it was because, Torts kept that team on the even keel, kept that team from getting too far ahead, kind of coached them through how to handle all the situations that they came across in that playoff series. And so if there's a coach out there that you'd like to have in the playoffs, I think he'd be right at the top of the list. The success that he's had, it's been immense, and that's something. It's going to be a veteran versus a rookie. It'll be very interesting to see how that works out as it goes. And a nice goal there by Gus Nyquist as well. Always good when you hear the stick taps. Someone scored a good goal, and Gus Nyquist just put one in there. Great
one-on-one drills here going on right now at the Ice House. As we mentioned, day 3 of Blue Jackets training camp 2.0. And starting tomorrow, let's point that out, we will be streaming at 12:30 because the Blue Jackets will have their first of 2 scrimmages. You can join Jody Shelley and I. We'll have the scrimmage for you live. Jackets will similarly scrimmage on Friday. I believe they will take the day off Saturday. And as John Tortorella, here's a little bit of a scoop here for you. John Tortorella telling me yesterday that the plan is next week to have a couple of games early on in the week, simulated games, so a little more than a scrimmage. And, of course, they'll spend a lot of time working on what will turn out to be a very important factor come this playoff series against Toronto, and that is the specialty teams' power play and penalty kill.
Absolutely. You look at Toronto, they're one of the top power plays in the NHL, and the games that the Blue Jackets played against them this year, the Blue Jackets found that out. Toronto scored some power play goals against them this year, and so, they move the puck very quickly on the power play. That's what makes Toronto so dangerous is, they've obviously got guys that can finish, but they move the puck in such a quick fashion that it allows those guys to get the shots that they need to finish. And so if you're a Blue Jackets penalty killer, I think that's going to be one of the keys is that they're going to have to really study what Toronto does and try to shut it down before it ever gets started and then kind of go from there. So, yeah, special teams will be huge. And I think just playing these game situations, you've only really got, 2 weeks of work here before you go to Toronto, and then you've got some time up there. And you'll obviously have the exhibition game as well against Boston that got announced last night coming up on July 30th. But, yeah, you need to play some game situations. These guys just haven't, played anything close to game hockey in 4 months. And so the more game situations you can put them in, these first 3 days have really been about puck touches and getting the legs back and stuff like that. But starting with the scrimmages and then into those games next week, you're really going to need to play some actual hockey just to kind of get into that point where they're ready for those games. And, it seems like Torts and the staff have a pretty good plan. And it'll be really fun to watch over these next couple of days on these streams and as we get going up into Toronto.
How about the National Hockey League? Kudos to them. Each team, of course, will play one exhibition game in the bubble in Toronto. And if you look at the matchups, it's rivalries and pretty well In fact, it is. And every game that's going to be played there, they're all rivalry games. The Blue Jackets will take on the Boston Bruins. You've got Pittsburgh and Philadelphia playing against one another, Toronto and Montreal. It's just a great concept before you start playing in the play-in series. And it'll be interesting to watch each and every one of those games.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you might as well make it as interesting as possible, right? You're going to have the eyes of really the whole sporting world have been on, when sports going to come back. And, I've started watching sports that I haven't watched in probably years over the last couple of weeks. And so if you're hockey coming back and you can have the Penguins and Flyers playing each other and the Leafs and the Canadiens and the Blue Jackets and the Bruins, why not do that? You just increase the interest as much as possible to get some eyes on this great sport. It'll be cool, too. You're coming back into playoff hockey once this restarts. And that's, the best hockey of the year. You hear it even from people who aren't the biggest hockey fans, how much they love playoff hockey and the intensity of it. It's going to be a great stage for everything that's going to happen here going forward, and a real chance to grow the game as we get back into these next couple weeks.
Well, I can't thank you enough for sitting in alongside Jeff, Jackets Insider. Great insight. Look forward to reading your thoughts here through training camp and ultimately once the Blue Jackets start in Toronto.
Well, and Jeff, I know you've got some good things you've been doing with On the Call as well here on our digital channels. You've had some great guests so far. You had Stan Bowman and Phil Esposito, Scotty Bowman and Phil Esposito, and some of the greats of coaching and in the NHL and stuff like that. Kirk Herbstreit. So you had to really kind of go down a peg lower to have me as a guest here this week. But I don't know if you want to tease what you've got coming up this weekend, but this will be a really fun one.
Well, we're going to have Michael Bublé, who's quite a hockey fan and a guy that I get a chance to talk to from time to time, and he'll join me for a visit on hockey. He's got some thoughts on the Blue Jackets and the playoff series, certainly his favorite team growing up as a Vancouver Canuck fan in the city. Why, we have a chance to visit with him, and we'll put that up on the Blue Jackets website, I believe, Saturday morning. But again, thank you for joining me. And we'd like to thank all of you for tuning in here on our Blue Jackets Live stream. Blue Jackets Live, of course, each and every day here at Nationwide. And we'd suggest that you follow us here on either the Blue Jackets website or certainly the Blue Jackets app. For Jeff, hey, it's the Jeff and Jeff Show. We didn't mention that. Well, after JR and JS. And again, Day 3 of Blue Jackets training camp presented by OhioHealth. And thank you for joining us here at the OhioHealth Ice House for Blue Jackets training camp Day 3. Have a great day.